Hello, and welcome to the Pop Off PCMag's video game show. I'm Jordan Miner. Today we're talking about video game crossovers, and to discuss this, we have a whole mix of folks from across various teams at PCMag. It's cool how that worked out. So joining me from the Work and Play team is Gabe.
Hey there, Gabe speaking.
From Consumer Electronics, we've got Will.
Howdy.
And from Hardware, we have Zach.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? Cool. So yeah, we're talking about video games that take, so much of nerd culture these days revolves around taking two different things and put them together and be like, hey, I recognize that those are two different things. They don't go together, and now they're the same thing. And video games are quite good at this. So kind of just to sort of get the discussion going here. When I say video game crossovers, what are the games that kind of just immediately come to mind when you think of that?
Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
A lot of fighting games. Right? Like Marvel versus Capcom.
Super Robot Wars.
Here we go. See,
And Project Cross Zone.
Smash Brothers for sure. I think. A lot of peanut butter and chocolate and Mortal Kombat space now, too. Like any fighting game. Fighting games seem to be rich for crossovers.
what about you, Gabe? What do you think?
I was thinking the same thing. I was just trying to go thinking through my recollection of games, and fighting games, I think, top the list when it comes to that sort of thing, where you just have Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter versus Tekken. Tekken itself had a bunch of crossover characters as well.
Yeah.
Soul Calibur had a bunch of crossover characters. Like fighting games, I feel like it's really ripe with that. But there are a couple of other crossovers. I think there's some like racing games that have like crossover spilling. So something like didn't Sonic have, well, it was like more Sega IPs, but I think some of the Sonic racers had like
there was one that was like all of these different like Sega. Like I remember like the guy Shenmue. It was like a racer and like Sonic
the crazy
and stuff like that.
The Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, the crazy taxi. Dude.
Cool. Well, that was all test to see if anyone would say Kingdom Hearts, and no one said it, so you all passed the test. So I mean, we were already starting to get into this, but yeah, like fighting games, I think are the genre that really that come to mind when talking about crossovers. Why do we think that is? Why do we think that that's such a rich genre for seeing? Is it just for the who can win in a fight kind of aspect of it? There's something else going on.
Yeah, just the idea of having like two characters fight each other. You could just have any two characters. You don't need to build an entire level and experience where you're interacting with the whole world and fighting a whole bunch of people. It's like you just have two people fighting. So who can those two people be? Whatever.
It's kind of funny how that kind of versus stuff is sort of ingrained in like nerd culture, like even the Fortnite had reignited the Dragon Ball Z Goku versus Superman debates. And it's just such a weird thing that's been like, oh man, this is better than this. And it's fueled the discussion of this type of stuff forever, it seems.
To me, video games are there's such a toy element to video games.
Yeah.
I mean, they are toys. And so like a big part of playing with toys is just sort of like taking whichever random one you got and just sort of mashing them together.
Yeah.
Like you're making up your own kind of stories.
Yeah, starting fights.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. Gabe, when you were talking about the race stuff, remind me too. I think in Burnout Paradise, they had a bunch of cars that maybe weren't officially like the Ghostbusters car or whatever, but like might as well have been.
Yeah, and I was thinking there was a recent, I think, didn't Horizon have a Hot Wheels crossover like just a couple of months ago or something?
That just came out, yeah.
Oh, it just came out. Okay.
Yeah, very recent. I think in June or something. But yeah, there's a Hot Wheels crossover.
Yeah, they had the Lego stuff too with that last, I think it was Horizon 4 had that whole Lego expansion.
Let's not forget that in Fighters Mega Mix, the car from Daytona was one of the fighters.
Is that the one that also has Snake in it?
No, that is, I actually had this queued up, Dream Mix TV World Fighters.
That's that weird platform fighter, right?
Yeah, which had Simon Belmont, Solid Snake, Bomberman, and Optimus Prime.
That's right. Yes.
I gotta import it sometime.
Will, I'm very intrigued that you said you had a list. What else is on your list?
I mean, nothing huge. Like I just wanted to look up the rosters of the Cross Zone games, and of course Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Yeah,
which I think is the first fighting game appearance of Mega Man Zero or Zero, not Mega Man Zero, along with a bunch of
Mega Man Walnut
anime characters who aren't necessarily recognizable here. Sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear.
Oh, I said Mega Man Walnut's in that too.
Yep. Probably his last appearance.
Rest in peace.
But yeah, like fighting games as a genre, because there's so much about characters and like adapting how we expect those characters to behave. It just seems like a great venue for like, but also for kind of for like adaptations. Like as much as people love Street Fighter cast and Tekken cast, like people also want to see characters from existing franchises in fighting games because they want to see how they would play in a video game. So fighting games, it's almost kind of it's a lot of hard work, but like it's almost kind of easy to do a crossover in a fighting game. I kind of wanted to ask, like, what are some other genres that we've seen crossovers in, or we think that maybe have some potential to do kind of more crossover kind of stuff? I mean, Will, you mentioned Project Cross Zone, which is a strategy RPG, I think.
I mean, yeah, the Super Robot Wars games have a lot of different robot-y, like, I think a couple have like Ava or like Big O.
Yeah, it's just a giant NECA crossover, right?
Yep. It's yeah, I'm sure I could have others off the top of my head, but like also the problem is with video games, it's like what counts as a crossover if they're all the same publisher? Because Konami's done that a couple times. I think there was like a Famicom side scroller, like a small series of them that had just a bunch of different characters. And of course, Smash Brothers. Is Smash Brothers a crossover game? The original one, before they started bringing in a whole bunch of stuff, or like, are there like sub crossovers and then like actual all world crossovers? Because Fortnite and MultiVersus, clearly anything's on the table. But until I think Melee, at least, like the original Smash Brothers, that was just Nintendo stuff, and that was a really small scope.
I mean, if you want to get into the weeds about how much Nintendo owns Pokemon or not. But yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But now we're at the point now where Smash Brothers is doing a better job with some of these PlayStation franchises than PlayStation is. At least in regards to Persona and Metal Gear and Final Fantasy VII even. It could be, because Gabe, we were talking about the racing stuff. So yeah, I'm just trying to talk about like what are some other genres that we think examples of crossovers in other genres, or that maybe could have some crossover potential.
Well, I mean, Fortnite was brought up a couple of times now by both Will and Zach, and I think that's a really good example. But it's also, I think, kind of an outlier, because when I think of like shooters, I mean, that's not necessarily true. Isn't King Kong and Godzilla in the latest Warzone Call of Duty map?
That sounds right. Yeah.
It was,
like in Battlefield.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, like shooters are, I guess it's not too common, but like with Fortnite, that's I think the top as far as crossovers go, simply because it's got from everything from anime to other video game franchises, and it's the one game that's not a fighting game. You know what I mean? But that's like the only one that I could think of off the top of my head that's like really big that does that sort of thing. Because I know, like, for example, Bayonetta had like the little Bowser crossover with the Switch and the Wii U versions.
Yeah.
It was just more like an Easter egg. Trying to think. I mean, the other game I would think of, I mean, that's going back to fighting games, is the Sony Smash, whatever that was called. But that's a fighting game. So that's
PlayStation All-Stars. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like going back to what we were talking about before. And then what about, wasn't there a couple of those like they're not amiibos, they're like the Skylanders ones?
Yeah, Skylanders.
Didn't they have a bunch of crossover stuff too?
They did some Nintendo stuff on the whatever Nintendo version.
And then Disney had their own, didn't they?
Disney had their own. And also Lego had their own. They had like Portal and Mortal Kombat and like the Goonies. It had a whole
That's right. It was like some multi-dimensional Lego game, right?
Yeah.
Lego Dimensions.
Yeah, Lego Dimensions, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that was after Lego had done all sorts of adaptations, all sorts of properties. They were like, let's all put them together. We may not make an entire Lego Scooby-Doo game, but we'll give you like a little level pack. I think they had a Sonic one too. Yeah, Fortnite is interesting, and this is kind of my next topic here is like the different levels of like effort a developer could put into the adaptation. Like in Fortnite, we see a lot of it's just the skins,
Yeah,
it's just the character model. Yeah. The Dragon Ball Z stuff's a little different because they're adding mechanics like the Kamehameha. I think Spider-Man could like swing around, but for the most part, those are like skins. Fall Guys has a lot of skins too. So like, when there's so many kind of games coming out now. There's been a lot of there's maybe been a bit of like a backlash of people saying like these are just sort of like cynical like cross branding exercises. And I think when it comes to like just skins, there's maybe a point there because like how hard is it to actually do? But in the games that kind of put some effort into actually like on a mechanical level adapting these franchises that are crossing over, I don't think that's quite as fair. But what do y'all think about the idea of these games just being very cynical and very like just kind of cash grabs?
I would say like in the case of Fortnite, I think that is almost definitely the case. Because very rarely, if ever, like I said, like you said, Spider-Man and the DBZ characters are the only characters that do anything unique. Everything else is just a skin. They all play the same. They all fight the same. As far as I'm aware, and I'm not the biggest Fortnite player at all, it's all the same stuff. So it's just more like, hey, do you want to pay more money for your favorite character skin? You want to play Sasuke or whatever? You can just buy this skin for $20 and play Fortnite in the exact same way, except now, you can glide on a crow or some nonsense. It's not really like game changing in the same way that, say, designing a fighting game character would be. Like, granted, you don't have to do maybe like a stage or something for RoboCop and then design his moves, but I mean, RoboCop kind of speaks for himself. He fights the way you would expect RoboCop to fight. Whereas, like, if you put RoboCop in Fortnite, it's just Fortnite man or woman with a RoboCop skin. So I don't know. It does feel a little cynical in that respect. But in the case specifically of Fortnite, I would say for sure that's exactly what they're going for, because they just want you to buy the skin, because that means more money for them in the end.
But
I think effort. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I know, I think it's good to have a healthy amount of cynicism when it comes to stuff like that, particularly like skins and Fortnite and stuff like that. But I also think there's a charm to just seeing these characters act out of character. Like having them dance and having them hold a gun, just in general, just them running around with weapons is already ridiculous. And there's, to an extent, I think that's worth the price alone. I'm not as cynical when I see stuff like that. I mean, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of fun to be had, even if it's just a skin and like maybe an emote or something. I mean,
I would agree with you 100%. And I think that's the appeal for most people, is that it's not really like, oh, I wasn't expecting Ryu to be able to throw his Hadouken, but I want to be able to play with him, or Chun-Li, or like I said, Sasuke or Naruto, or Goku. It's just more like, hey, I like these characters and I would like to play them in this game, and it's just kind of fun to be able to do that. And I don't want to be like the old man kind of waving his cape around, like, oh man, these games aren't what they used to be, or these skins aren't what they used to be. But on the one hand, yeah, I am cynical, but on the other hand, I understand. It's just like, you want to have fun with your game, and this is how they're doing that. And if that's how you have fun, that's totally fun. I'm just more like sitting on the chair, just kind of being a little cynical about it, because it does feel a little bit like a cash grab at times.
I think all games, or almost all games, are cash grabs, and all microtransaction-based games are cash grabs, just period. How cynical they are can be a matter of opinion, but just having a structure where you need to do some form of loot box gambling, or a small form like investments to get the style you want, that's already itself a cash grab. You're trying to get people into an ecosystem and commit them into basically paying you to get these little additions you put out over time, which can be totally fine if it's a game you really like and you want to support it in that way. But it's also really, really easy for there to be a lot of gross additions to that. At least things like Fortnite and MultiVersus seem so far to be fairly direct. Like, they don't have loot boxes, do they?
No,
like, I'm pretty sure I didn't see them.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. No. So like, at least with that, you're just like putting in the money for the things you want. That's good. But that is restrained compared to some other games we've seen. EA has done a lot of those in the past, which has like soured me towards many of the games they've published, because like obviously the Battlefront 2 debacle, and even after that, Star Wars, what was the X-Wing Squadrons, that did it too. Just like, really, any microtransactions are going to be a cash grab, but how much of it's cynical is just sort of how much do you want to tolerate.
Especially in regards to free-play games. the thing that I give MultiVersus credit for, going back to like, how much the quality of crossovers, that the characters all play, like there's effort into making the characters play like how you expect. Like they sat down and said, all right, LeBron James is our fighting game. We're going to give him a whole basketball set of mechanics, whether or not he has the ball or not. It's going to totally change his moveset. And also because they want to make that a competitive game. So like they can't they can't make their economy so crazy play to win that it would just completely dash any hopes of that happening.
Right.
All right, so that's a lot. That's some good, like, high-minded, games criticism discussion. But the real reason I think to talk about game crossovers is just to do some like old-fashioned like fan fiction stuff. So like, what are some crossovers that you guys would like to see in a video game? Plausible or not plausible? It can be something that will never happen, or something that might be announced, today at Gamescom or something.
I want Solid Snake to be in the Assassin's Creed universe. I just want him to navigate that and just go like, this is all kind of basic. What the hell?
They reference him in that Splinter Cell game or something, right? Or doesn't Sam Fisher talk about Snake like obliquely in some Ghost Recon game or something?
Yeah.
So
He says like he's the only one left because there's like no stealth games, or his generation of stealth games are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me personally, I've always been a fan. I know this is exactly a crossover because it's already been done before, but the Dissidia games with the Final Fantasy characters, I really like Dissidia, and they really dropped the ball with that last one. I want them to just re-release the old one or make a good one. That would be nice with the fighting.
The last one's just clearly the arcade game, right?
It was the
like
arcade one that was ported over, and it was like super streamlined compared to the PSP versions. So it was just like kind of dumbed down and not very fun. It was really cinematic and like flashy, but it was really shallow at the same time. I just want that. I'd be happy with that. And then going back to I've said this before, but I really liked Anarchy Reigns too, and that had a little bit of crossover with Mad World and Bayonetta. Can we get a port, Sega? Can just put it on PC. I'd be happy with that. Please. That's it. As far as I'm a simple guy. That's all I want. Just give me that.
Well, you, Zach, who do you want to see fight or play tennis?
I would love to see an MGS tennis game. No, I don't know. You know what? I'm a big Nintendo fan. I would love to see them do more crossovers like Smash, but in like an adventure game, or I hesitate to say a Kingdom Hearts style, but something like that I think would be really fun, having an adventure game or an RPG with Nintendo characters instead of working together and maybe like crossing over through each other's worlds and through each other's genre of game rather than beating the crap out of one another.
I know, Will, you and I talked about this, about how, Mario Kart could maybe add some more Nintendo stuff in like future installments. I think that's cool. My one worry there is that I don't
it should just be Smash Kart.
I feel like it's one character away from being Smash Kart, right?
My concern there, I just don't want every Nintendo franchise to then become like all Nintendo characters in all the games, because then it kind of becomes slop at that point. But I do think it's wild that like they made Mario and Sonic Olympics, but not like a platformer with those two characters.
Right.
I don't think we really need it, because like Mario and Sonic, whatever chapter or generation, however you like to play them, they play very differently, and they need levels that are designed very differently. So like things like adventure games and platformers, you can't really have that without compromising a lot of what the characters are.
Both consider this: those Sonic Adventure games already do that when they have all those Sonic levels next to all those awful Knuckles levels.
Right. And the even worse big levels.
All these wildly disparate mechanics.
Sonic Generations did that too, and with two different Sonics. There was 3D Sonic and 2D Sonic.
True. Yeah. I just want Nintendo to make a Sonic game. I would like to see if even they can't even do it, then it's just a lost cause.
And then no one can do it. Yeah.
What just came to my mind is something I thought of before. I'm
excited to see Sonic Frontiers.
Crazy. Sonic Automata.
Yeah, I'm not, but that's what came to my mind was I thought about this before. I want a Call of Duty game set in the Metal Gear universe. I feel like that would be a kind of an interesting crossover as far as things go, because you're playing as a generic soldier, not some super Snake clone or anything like that, just in that universe. I think that'd be cool.
There's a lot of joking about like put Goku in Smash, or he probably will be in MultiVersus at some point. But I would really like just a bunch of different anime characters in a fighting game. And you know what some of you might be thinking? Yeah, what about all anime brawler type games suck? Like they're their own genre called arena fighters, where it's like Xenoverse and Jump Force, and it's like a kind of a janky third person perspective. It's like, I just want Smash Brothers, but an all anime cast. Like, just have
you not played Jump Ultimate Stars, whatever that game was on the DS?
Okay, I want a new one with My Hero Academia characters. Maybe some Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man would be awesome.
They were selling that game at my local Best Buy because the DS wasn't region locked. That was really crazy to see.
Yeah.
Gotta get a copy.
Gabe, you mentioned shooters. An idea that I've had. I always thought that Xbox should make like a crossover shooter. They own so many shooter franchises at this point. Like, don't make a platform fighter. Do like a kind of like an Overwatch kind of game.
Yeah, like a hero shooter, right?
Yeah, Master Chief and Doom Guy and BJ Blazkowicz, and
that would actually be the best
Activision, so they could put the Call of Duty guys in there.
That would be the best use of like Xbox IPs, because I could not see them doing a platform fighter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them to do a platform fight. I think that would be a cool idea. And they've got so much stuff that it's a first person shooter. We don't even have to see them. So many faceless characters they own. It'd be great.
Yeah, put Marcus Phoenix in there. Either that or make a new Def Jam game. Have Arc System Works make it. The idea of a fighting game starring rappers is so delicious that it's crazy that no one has made another one of those games in like 15 years.
What would Lil Nas X's moveset be?
It'd be like Aaron Black in Mortal Kombat X, but a lot more flamboyant.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's all. So all you game developers and money people out there listening to the show, you can have all those ideas for free because you already own all those franchises. But thanks for joining us for this discussion on game crossovers. We've got all sorts of coverage of Smash Brothers and MultiVersus and all sorts of stuff on PCMag.com. So check that out. And we'll talk to you next time.